my gosh! Oh no! Oh no!
So, I was having a flick through of some of these games from the Reykjavik Open, and this one caught my eye. Now, playing with white is Abhijeet Gupta, strong GM from India, 2600 player, and he was playing against an international master, also from India. Let me get the name right. So it's Mohapatra Sidhant. Not heard of him before, but so many strong players coming out of India these days, of course. GMs, IMs, etc. Now, this one caught my eye because it's just this swashbuckling game, and it really reminded me of one I covered just a few weeks ago on the channel between Gukesh and Carlsen. So I'll link that one at the end. Also a very exciting game. Now let's see this one. It really features this amazing attack. So first we see these Queen's Gambit declined moves on the board, and now Knight c3 all looks pretty normal. Black now goes pawn to h6. I mean, it stops the bishop g5 pin, which is good, although it doesn't develop pieces, so it's not the most common move here. And now g3 from white. Okay, very standard, kind of Catalan setup, right? Bishop d6 played. Magnus did all of this. He had the black pieces, Gukesh with white. And now we see a3. Now, what's that all about? Why are you doing that little waiting move? Well, here's the trick. So castles was played by black in this game and Magnus, and now not bishop g2, which you might expect, but g4, this really aggressive idea, and psychologically you're straight in the opponent's head, attacking them from out of nowhere. Now here we see black play the same move as Magnus Carlsen, chess deja vu as I say. So if you take the pawn, which wasn't played, you're running straight into this big attack with rook g1. Now if the knight drops back, well, we take the pawn, huge attack, white's doing great. There is actually this move of pawn e5, opening the bishop to defend, all gets a bit crazy, but it's better for white still. You know, that black center is very unstable. So coming back here, taking not best, knight e4 is best when you run it with the engine, and it makes a lot of sense because you're clearing the knight away from the g5 push, you're opening the queen, you're clearing the way for the f pawn sometimes, and you're kind of challenging, counterplaying in the center, which is thematic when you're being attacked on a flank. Now we see queen c2. So covers this knight, pressures here, and f5 was now played. Same move that Magnus played. Now you can see the question mark from the computer because they're preferring to actually take on c3, not push the f pawn. And that does make sense to me because when you're pushing this f pawn, I mean, you're helping white open the g file. It's not best. And now this is the point at which we diverge. So in this game we see takes on c3, but Magnus took with the pawn on f5. Won't spoil the result in case you want to watch that one after this video. So takes was played in this game. We see pawn recaptures, and now here black really plays a bit slowly. So knight c6 is the top engine move, just trying to bring some pieces into play. But we see pawn c6 played, just a bit slow, not developing pieces. Now, you can start with rook g1 here, good move, but we first see pawn to c5. And again, it's a really instructive idea. White is trying to blow black away on the king side, so they first shut down, close the center, so that there's no play, counterplay there, they can fully switch their attention over to the king. Now we see rook g1, simple threat to win the pawn using the pin. Now king h8 is the top computer move, but it's not too far behind to play rook f6, so not too bad. And now here's a great move from white. You know, how do you throw more fuel on the fire here, get the pieces into the game? Well, again, the very thematic pawn to e4, blowing open that position with tempo. Now, I know I talked about keeping the center closed, although in this instance, you know, you're threatening to push e5, which will then help your kingside attack. So black has to react. Now we see takes on e4 played. If they were to take here, by the way, well, this is really bad because then e5 comes. And again, it's just awful. The black rook's retreating. This pawn will be dropping. Things like knight h4 could be on the board if it's supported at the right moment. Again, the center's closed. White can attack. So we see takes here played. The queen recaptures, and now black goes fatally wrong. So the top engine move here is to take on f5. Now probably this wasn't played because you open another diagonal towards your king, bishop c4 check can come, and this is the top line here. And again, white's having the fun, attacking, black's still pretty poor in terms of their development, a bit behind, so it is better for white, but it was the best way to go. But what was played was queen d5, just hastily trying to chop off those queens. However, white is not obliged to take. We see the queen slide across to g4. Also bringing the queen here was a good move. And there's a simple threat to checkmate the king. And how do you stop it in a nice way? Well, you don't. If you move the g-pawn, obviously that's horrendous. You know, you loosen this one, awful. If you drop back with the queen, well, then you run into knight e5, more tempo. The bishop's coming to c4, knight g6. Just awful, awful. And so this is why rook f7 was played instead, but this has new problems. You've now left the defense of this h6 pawn and the f6 square is unblocked, so white could have either taken there, which wasn't played, or push f6. Both great moves. And now the black position is just crumbling apart. So knight d7 developed, desperate to take here, and now the bishop crashes through on h6. Yes, the knight captures, but here's the star move. What did white play here to crash through the attack? Now the title perhaps gives it away here, but still, what do you think the move was? Well done if you found queen takes on g7. And obviously if you're looking for star moves, just look to sack your queen, right? You know, rule of thumb. Anyway, brilliant idea, because after captures, rook takes with check, well, you're winning the queen back by force. Now, if the king goes to the corner here, well, this is the follow-up, and especially well done if you saw this one. So knight g5. And the idea is you're threatening to actually checkmate the black king by jumping into there. And there's no black piece can cover that threat apart from the queen. So whether you take the knight immediately or drop back, then take the knight, same difference. When the smoke clears, you're in exchange down and the pawn down as well. So, you know, it's just hopeless, game over. So the king came this way instead. But now there's the problem of the windmill tactic. You move the rook, you reveal the bishop, it's check, the king goes, you pick up the queen. And the problem now after recaptures, you're not an exchange down, but you're 2 pawns down. Just awful. And bishop d3, white's even got the lead in development. So knight g4 was played, hits that unprotected bishop. It slid back to g5. This one finally developed, letting the rook out of the box. I was going to say connecting the rooks, but there's only one rook. Pawn to h3, kicks that knight from g4, or does it? Well, black counterattacks. We see the king defend, then there was a check, king f1, the rook slides back, and king g2. Still covers the knight, and the king has improved really, come over to those kingside pawns. Now the knight drops back. Rook e1, and here black finds a nice idea to actually sort of mix up the flow of the game. I mean, white's got some very steady plans now. You know, you can jump this knight to e5, maybe you start running the pawn or something. And so here we see this move of knight e4 interrupting those plans. So yes, you lose a pawn after this sequence here, but this is the idea now, the black follow-up. It's bishop takes on h3 with check. Because after king captures, you take here with check, the king goes, and you win another pawn. So now only 1 pawn down. However, amazingly, rook e7 finished the game on the spot, resignation. And arguably, it wasn't premature, because this bishop actually has no squares except for a5. You know, if it drops to the back rank, then you get checked, and then the bishop drops, and it can't come anywhere on this diagonal. So okay, bishop a5, only move, but then this pawn drops. This is one sample line, the a pawn drops, and this is then the final couple of moves that I ran on when I was looking at this with the engine. Essentially, black's 2 pawns down, and there's not a lot of counterplay. The king's dominated. These pieces aren't even as well placed as these pieces. So for players of this caliber, and even any players going down the scale, right, this should be a comfortable win. So some respect shown here for the GM opponent. So great game, and check out this one on screen if you want to see the same line between Gukesh and Carlsen. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.